Hello, everyone. I'm Julie Moon, Senior Research Analyst with Finovate. We are here at FinovateFall, and I am excited to talk to Kate Young, Marketing Manager at Middesk today. We're going to be talking about the future of business identity and why it's a critical driver of growth and fraud prevention. Kate, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Julie.
So let's get right into the questions here. So you guys are one of the leading innovators of business identity. How do you see the landscape in this area evolving, and what does closing the trust gap that we hear, what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you about it. So Middesk, we spend every single day thinking about businesses and kind of the identity of them. And what that really means is all of the different data points that go into describing or making a comprehensive story about a business. That could be the business itself, like their formation documents and things that are on file with the government. It could mean the industry that they work in, or the people that are actually running that business, right? So all of that goes in to make a complete business identity. What we see in the landscape today is that there are more businesses being formed in the US than babies being born every single month. So it's an amazing entrepreneurial market right now. And that's been the case since COVID, and it hasn't really slowed down. And so what financial institutions are showing us and telling us is that they want to capture that market. They want to bank and provide services to those small businesses. And so there's this really large volume of data and business identities out there in the market right now. There's still like this gap, though, like a trust gap between all of the businesses and the changes that they make, both legitimately and illegitimately, and the understanding of those financial institutions of those businesses. So there's this wide gap between all of that business identity data and the financial institutions being able to trust it. What we see is through data, that's kind of our perspective, through high quality data, we can actually bring that gap much closer, and financial institutions can get much closer to trusting those businesses and saying yes to them more confidently, and honestly growing their portfolio with those businesses once they truly trust who they are.
Very cool. Well, lots of opportunity there for sure,
Yes.
everything you've mentioned. So a lot of financial institutions, they think of business identity mostly in terms of onboarding. What other use cases are there?
Right. Onboarding is kind of the first point of entry for people when they think about business identity, like a KYC or a KYB compliance check. But we see that our customers in financial services and more really just treat businesses along a much longer life cycle. So it could look like actually knowing what businesses are formed and marketing to them before you onboard them. We see people using it for underwriting, so deciding how much to loan a business, or like in equipment financing, what kind of collateral order you're going to have in your UCC lien. And then another use case, I'll do two more. So there are merchant onboarding. So like a non-compliant use case would be like large marketplaces that you think of, like name brand, where everybody buys their things all the time. They want to onboard merchants that are going to be legitimate and provide trust to their organization and trust to their platform. And the last is just ongoing monitoring. So once you onboard a business, they actually will change many times over their life cycle. They will move and get a new address. They might add a new owner. And you have to keep track of those business identity changes to know, like, are they still legitimate? Are they still worth providing services to?
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so you kind of hinted at this, but let's talk about fraud now.
Okay.
Obviously, it's constantly shifting and also constantly growing. How can better data help firms spot fraud earlier in the process?
Totally. I heard a really large national bank get up on stage and say, banks are basically data companies now, which I kind of agree with. They have so many data points, and it's really their job and people like Middesk's job to help understand and parse and understand that data. So better data can actually help find fraud, particularly if you have it fresh. So if you know that a business has changed their SOS records, or they've changed something about their data, and then they're trying to go get a loan, that could be a really nice red flag, right? And it's easy to spot because only when you have fresh data that is like relevant and kind of recent. So that's one way. We also see kind of network effects of data.
Hmm.
So at Middesk, we have 100% business coverage of every single US business, every single
Wow.
one that is formed. And so what that means is that we know all of the addresses that they've submitted, all of the beneficial owners that they've submitted. And so we can go and then look at the network and say, okay, well, does it make sense that 50 businesses have been registered with one little apartment in Wyoming? Like that maybe
Yeah.
doesn't seem legitimate. And so those network effects of looking at the entire pie of the business identity market is what we see as the way to identify fraud.
Yeah. Definitely highlights the importance of data, not only data, but also real-time data too.
Yeah,
It's
that
important.
like that timeliness is so important. In the same
Yeah.
way that real-time payments is now the hot topic in payments,
Yeah.
like real-time business identity data is essentially what everyone needs to go after in order to catch fraud.
Yeah. Very cool. So let's talk about Perpetual Know Your Business, or
Mhm.
PKYB. Talk to us about why this is gaining traction and how it can kind of keep you up keep you up with risk beyond the first check.
Yeah, people are starting to say PKYB to us, this perpetual
Yeah.
element. And it ties back to my previous answer about the ongoing monitoring. Essentially, KYB is related to the Corporate Transparency Act and the regulations that mandate that financial institutions have to do a verification check on the customers or businesses that they're working with. Of course, that like assumes that businesses don't really change, but we've talked about like they can legitimately change, and fraudsters kind of know that they can change business records in order to kind of evade those KYB checks.
Oh, yeah.
So perpetual KYB really refers to this philosophy that people are now dynamically and constantly checking
Yeah.
on the business identity. So maybe it's periodic checks, or another way is that you could flag if there's been a series of changes,
Mm-hmm.
and then that will kick to an analyst or someone to look into why there have been so many changes. So that perpetual really is kind of becoming more of an industry standard with the leaders, so they know that they're not just onboarding once and then kind of forgetting about them.
All right, now we have time for one last question here. So, looking ahead, what innovations in business identity are helping organizations grow confidently while reducing fraud risk?
Yeah. So growing confidently, that really goes back to that trust gap concept. When people feel like they actually know every business and understand the data that they're getting, they actually trust them, and then it's much easier to grow confidently, right? It's easier
Yeah.
to say yes. What we see kind of driving that is businesses really partnering with us on what data they actually need. We actually work very closely with our customers to go and get new data sets and provide them solutions and ways of analyzing that data that will help their decisioning. The big thing that we see right now is those network insights. So
Mhm.
taking a look at the entire pie together and being able to spot things like synthetic identities or people that are popping up as beneficial owners on way too many businesses,
Yeah.
or even address risk. That's a really hot topic right now, where understanding where an address really is and how many businesses are using that address is becoming kind of the frontier of uh, both product growth and compliance
Mm.
professionals, knowing every business. So that's kind of what we're most excited about, is these risk and network insights, being able to drive much more confidence in who those businesses are and which ones are the good ones.
Yeah. All right. That's a great summary, too. Well, Kate, thank you so much for your time. I learned a lot about KYB and the importance of clean data, perpetual data, and all that.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next time.